Before we jump into this episode, I want to remind you that while Caitlin and Sophia are dietitians, we're not your dietitians. This means the information shared in the Food Freedom Fertility podcast is intended to entertain, educate, and inform. It is not a substitute for medical care. This information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making any changes.
Welcome to another episode of Food Freedom and Fertility. This is your bestie fertility friend podcast. We're your best friends. Sophia and I are best friends, but she is off doing fun appointments for her pregnancy right now, which is great. We'll celebrate that. I'm flying solo, but I'm not alone. This is not just me talking to the airwaves. I have a co-pilot today. And I'm very excited to introduce a new product. I guess it's not really a product, a new test. Shall I say it that way? And introduce a new expert to our audience today. We have Dr. Kristin Brogaard. Did I say that right?
You said that perfectly.
Okay, good. She is a PhD super science whiz, and we're going to be talking all things sperm health today. So while you and I may hang out a lot, this is a great episode to hit pause. And while you're cooking dinner tonight with your partner or going on a walk, my husband and I do this. I think our neighbors think we're crazy, but we like to listen to podcasts out loud on our walks sometimes. We also pray out loud on our walks. It's a great time going on our walks. If you're ever in Wichita, you can join one. But this is a good one to have him join too. So welcome, Kristin. We're so happy to have you today.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. Really appreciate the invitation.
Yeah. So if you are listening, you could go to pathfertility.com if you want to reference what we're going to be talking about today. But if you've listened to a past episode, we had a doctor on recently that referenced this specific test for our male partners. And I said, I'd never heard of this before, which is always fun and exciting to me. I did 2 seconds of research and thought, this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And so here we are. I invited Kristin. We found a time and we're getting this recorded for you. But I'm going to kind of open the door for you to tell us who you are, how you ended up studying this, why you care, and what product/test you've brought to market that our listeners should know about.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And I will do my best to give this topic the justice it deserves, and reviewing what we're doing as a company. So I guess we'll start out my background. So I have a doctorate and a postdoctorate, all focused on technology development, and specifically, my PhD was focused on a field called epigenetics. And I'll kind of give a brief overview of this, but epigenetics is how your genes are turned on and off. So every cell in your body, from your brain cells to your liver cells, all have the same DNA sequence. So it has your genes in it. But what's really important is which genes are turned on and off in those cell types. So in your brain cells, you have genes that are important for your brain function turned on, and things that are responsible for liver function turned off, and vice versa in your liver cells, where you really need the proper genes for that cell type to be turned on and off. It's an extremely important field because you need to understand how these genes are turned off, on and off, to really understand different disease. And something that I think is really interesting for this podcast is, and very important in the epigenetic field, is that epigenetics, so how your genes are turned on and off, is influenced by the environment. So we know that if you change the exposures of your body, either, basic, food ingestion, medications, sunlight, stress, sleep, all the things that we know impact your health, it actually changes which genes are turned on and off. And it makes sense, because if you are exposing yourself to negative influences, that can lead to a disease. And that disease is likely associated because you turned on genes that aren't supposed to be turned on, or turned them off. A really concrete example to this, and kind of the first studies in epigenetics were focused on identical twins. So you would assume identical twins have the exact same DNA. You would assume their health to trajectories to be the same. But we
Mm.
know that in a lot of cases, twins can have either one can go into have a disease, get cancer, have cardiovascular disease, and one can remain healthy.
Mhm.
And that we can trace that back to changes in your epigenetics that are really causing those differential disease states and health conditions. And likely most of those are impacted by the environment, the differential environment that these two individuals were exposed to. So
Mhm.
that's the field I was in, is how do we develop technologies to interrogate gene expression, which genes are turned on and off. I had the opportunity um, to dive in. My background's not in the reproductive health,
Okay.
but my current co-founder, who wasn't my co-founder at the time, had two friends going through fertility treatment, and they, after 2 years of testing and treatment and $80,000, they got diagnosed with unexplained infertility.
Mm.
And for someone in the sciences, and my co-founder who was in the diagnostics, were just like shocked by this. What does a diagnosis of unexplained mean? It means you don't have an answer. And when we dove into it, the female had gotten so much testing and invasive procedures, and we couldn't find anything. And the male partner had a semen analysis. And diving into the semen analysis, um, it was I was blown away. It is 1950s technology. You're looking under a microscope and counting how many sperm are there, what their shape is, and like, are they
How they
moving?
move. Mhm.
How they move. And that is the extent of the testing that most individuals get in fertility treatment on the male side.
Mhm.
So I was, one, floored by the lack of innovation in the fertility space. And then two, really hit hard with the mission of bringing more equity to this journey. We
Mhm.
know men play a huge role in the fertility process. And again, women are getting really the bulk of all of the testing, as well as the stigma and the pressure and everything.
Mhm.
So, how do we bring more technologies into the space that are helpful for men? A really important component of this, too, is we dove in and found that a lot of infertile men are considered fertile because they have a normal semen analysis.
Mm.
And we
Air
know
quotes, like normal,
normal.
normal for
Exactly.
what? For like
Exactly.
IVF? Normal for what?
They meet some standard of having enough sperm and they're moving properly. And it is
Mhm.
what we have uncovered, and what's really known in the male reproductive side of this industry, is that a lot of men are going undiagnosed. So their infertility is going undiagnosed because we are only relying on this visual analysis of sperm. And when men go undiagnosed, the female partner is put through procedures that are completely futile. They're not going
Mhm.
to work. And
Mhm.
so you could go through a year of trying naturally at home, timed intercourse, 3 IUI cycles, and you're not going to get pregnant if it's a male factor. And that's leading to a financial toll and a huge emotional toll. Every time you get your period during that process, it's gut wrenching.
And lost time.
So,
I mean,
oh, lost
which,
time. Exactly.
that's the emotional and the heartache. Plus, from a female perspective, time really matters. I mean,
It
there
really
are fertile
matters.
years and then there are not. And you can't turn that back on.
That's it. That's exactly right. And so what we set out to do when we saw this problem is, can we create a better diagnostic, or a more comprehensive diagnostic for male fertility? Can we do the semen analysis, but then really dive into the molecular biology of the sperm to see if we can predict fertility success? And can we do that utilizing this idea of epigenetics? Which genes in sperm are turned on and off? And that is what we set out to do about 6.5 years ago. My co-founder and I started our company, Path Fertility. And about 2 years ago, we were able to launch our first product called Sperm QT, or Sperm Quality Test. And that is available now as a test. And we are just really starting to push the growth of it because the data is so consistently good. And what this does, we get a semen sample. We isolate the sperm in the semen because there's a lot of other things in the semen besides sperm
Mm-hmm.
cells. We
Mm-hmm.
isolate the sperm, we open up the sperm, and we sequence the epigenetic patterns on top of 1,233 genes.
Wow.
And what we're able to determine and how we develop this is we know which of those genes needed to be turned on and off in men with fertile men, and we can determine in that sample how far does this deviate from a fertile sample. And we now have cutoffs to know at some point there's a certain point of deviation where the sperm doesn't function properly. They can't bind, and penetrate the egg.
Hmm.
And then in those cases, we can predict spontaneous pregnancy success, timed intercourse success, and IUI success
Wow.
by analyzing the epigenetics of the sperm.
Okay, can we pause right there? Because that's
Yeah.
like mic drop a little bit, right? Like, first of all, super profound and impressive that 6 years ago you started this thing. And did I hear just over 2 years ago you brought your first product to market, and then it's
Yes.
already with some level of specificity, precision, and reliability over
Yes.
and over again, doing this thing very well. Just for our listener, right? Like, you and I hang out in science, you much more than I in a more in-depth way. But let's even go over the basics a little bit more if they don't remember from their biology or maybe even their college genetics class. I took a genetics class. Like, okay, so your sperm's bringing half the DNA to an embryo, the egg is bringing the other half. If you have been infertile and have advanced or have had friends or are aware of, you've heard of maybe genetic testing embryos in IVF.
Right.
And you may have heard of genetic testing about 10 weeks into pregnancy, where you can have a needle inserted and some genetic material extracted from baby, and we can look at a genetic pattern. The only other thing that I can think of other than this that's obvious and kind of fairly routine is mom getting a blood test about the same time in pregnancy and looking for whether you're carrying a boy or a girl genetically,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So hearing that we're testing the genetics of the sperm, it's not even routine that harvested female eggs genetics are tested. I don't know of that technology. Maybe it's being developed or understood. But if you go through fertility treatments to the point that we've harvested sperm, we've harvested eggs, we've put them together and created an embryo, then we look at quality parameters genetically.
Right.
So what you're saying you created and is already to market is a way to kind of pull back the hood prior to that and become much more investigative on the male side, where we don't really look much further. And I will say it is very common for a woman to have, as you said, very invasive, very uncomfortable, multiple times, different rounds of testing, blood taken, all these things. And oftentimes a male gets a semen analysis and they haven't even had like routine, normal blood work done very often.
Absolutely. But in most cases, it's not the
Most
case where
cases
you don't have hormonal testing for men or other routine blood tests.
Which we know from research that things like blood sugar parameters, inflammation markers, even just obesity, before we even get to like steroidal hormones or like testosterone, impacts down the line on live birth rates and pregnancy implications and things. Sophia and I are so proud to be sponsored by TempDrop. TempDrop is a fertility sensor that you wear on your arm while you sleep, and it has a companion app on your smartphone that you can sync those temperatures with each day. That way you can track your cycle and know your own body while you're tracking your fertility trying to conceive. This is an incredible tool. It's one of the first things I like to recommend to new clients. And if you're listening to this podcast and trying to conceive, consider yourself one and head over to tempdrop.com. One of the reasons why I love this brand and this company so much is how value driven they are. It was born out of a husband and wife trying to conceive and trying to figure out basal body temping and making it easier. And in alignment with that value of making this information more accessible, they have just decided to lower their price. And in a landscape where everything is getting more expensive, I love that this company is making a bold move to make this product and this technology more accessible to women. So the new base price of this model is $189. This is incredible. You can even use our code FFF10 to get 10% off this new lower price. So head to our show notes or to tempdrop.com, grab yourself your fertility monitor, choose the size that you need, throw that code into the checkout area, and get tracking your basal body temperature today. We are taking a break from the episode, and I want to chat with you a little bit about Fertility Cloud. If you've been told you need help ovulating, or you have PCOS and you're trying to figure out your next fertility step, I want to tell you about Fertility Cloud. They make fertility care simple, transparent, and affordable, especially when it comes to ovulation stimulation and ovulation induction treatments. Instead of waiting for months to see a fertility specialist or getting hit with surprise bills, Fertility Cloud lists every price clearly right on their website. You'll see exactly what you're getting into and exactly what it costs. No hidden clinic fees, no surprise invoices later. For my PCOS clients, this is huge. Their ovulation stimulation program can help jumpstart ovulation safely at home with physician guidance and medications delivered directly to you. You can do it all virtually, no driving to clinics or sitting in waiting rooms, and you can often even get appointments same day. If you're wondering, how do we do ultrasounds or what about lab draws? Don't worry, their concierge service helps determine where you can do that locally to you and coordinates with you on your behalf. It's just amazing. And here's the best part. If you're ready to take that next step, you can click the link in our show notes and get $50 off your first appointment. That means you get right in front of a fertility specialist for $115. That first visit gets you matched with a fertility doctor who actually understands your needs, and you'll walk away with a clear plan for your next cycle. So head to the link in our show notes, book your appointment, save $50 on your first Fertility Cloud visit, because fertility care should be transparent, affordable, and built for you. So what I'm trying to underline, because Kristin and I are going, yeah. But for you listener, just the nuance that is being opened and available and like looked at here is vast, like over 12,000 gene. I don't even know how to talk about it. I don't even have the vocabulary to say back to you what you just said to me at the tip of my tongue. I'm just really kind of dumbfounded in a very happy way that this is becoming available. So you've brought this thing to market. Tell us how Sperm QT is different. I know you've given us some numbers and things, but like in a normal semen analysis, we're looking at count, shape, movement. But then there is something else that can be tested called DNA fragmentation, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit and how maybe that's different than what you're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And I wanna address that, but I do just want to emphasize what you have just said a little bit earlier. I think the profound part of this and the conversation as a whole, not just from QT, is that we need men to be involved and tested earlier. Um,
Yes.
Not even, I mean, the semen analysis provides very important information that should be done as early on in the process. Sperm QT adds to that information to make a much more comprehensive diagnostic. We need men to be involved and understand their own health as early as possible, even before trying to conceive. Because if you don't nip that in the bud or improve that by lifestyle or medication, it makes the entire process longer, and that it gets to your time issue, and then more expensive and just more emotional. So
Mhm.
you having this conversation earlier on with Sperm QT and everything else available on the male side is really, really important, because it is delayed right now, and we need to start to bring it earlier on into the conversation. And we know the male's lifestyle impacts sperm quality, which impacts one, the ability to get pregnant, but two, offspring health. So
Mhm.
how do we optimize the men's health earlier on, just like women do? What we do to our bodies and where we put ourselves before trying to conceive is incredible. Like people cut caffeine, we stop alcohol. We just, like, everything is like we changed our lifestyles to be as healthy as possible. Men need to do the same, and we need to start testing earlier for the man. So I just
Mhm.
wanted to underline what you just said, because long-term mission of where I want to go is education on male infertility, improving men's health for optimal pregnancy and offspring outcomes.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's
And
really important.
that is like generational. We're talking about like healing generational
Multiple generations.
trauma and generational this and that. Like, let's talk about we have missions to like increase the health of the planet for our future generations and like safeguard that we don't kill everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we want to I think zooming out and going, the work that I'm doing and this product I've brought to market and what it can inform for a couple, like you can give them the keys to the thing that they hold most dear in their hopes and dreams, right? Like, let's grow a family. And that is really cool and goosebump worthy. But thinking about improving the health of generations of not just one family, but multiple families, like that is like all over goosebumps. I hope listening to this, you're
It,
getting goosebumps because that's so cool. That's so cool.
it is. It's really cool. It's exciting, and it's daunting to see the research coming out. I mean, just the impacts of THC use on sperm and the longitudinal impacts on offspring are just shocking. And we've been taught growing up that men can always reproduce. They can reproduce till they're 90, and you have sperm, you're fine. But really, there's quality sperm, and that quality sperm not only impacts fertility, but the health of your children and their children. And so it's daunting and exciting, and yeah, it's definitely our long-term vision of
Mm-hmm.
education.
And I will say, and we've talked about this on the podcast, so I won't belabor it too much, but not only do we need more views into the health of the couple prior to conception, we need to kind of shift the narrative around it that like dudes don't care. Because the men that I work
Oh
with
yeah,
in my business,
they care.
they care so much. They're invested
Yep.
husbands, partners, fathers, even already. They're invested and they're willing to make changes. And I think we just have this like 1990s view of like the sitcom dads that just sit on the couch and drink beer and don't care and everybody makes fun of. And that's not the men that I
No.
know in my practice. They're showing up, they're fighting for answers. And I think that's really wonderful. And so kudos to you that we have another route to give them some valuable information. And I think the other thing that you just said that's super profound is there's this revolution in this understanding in women's health that our cycles reflect back to us as another key metric or
Yes.
vital sign of health, and that we can use that to learn things about our hormones and our overall metabolic health and like dot dot dot. We see that in sperm as well. And so
Absolutely.
there are people that are going to listen to this and just they love tests. And so they'll be like, I'm going to go buy this test and I'm going to do it because I just want to know what's going on. But there are others that are going to go, what's the real utility of this? And like maybe you're listening to this, you just found out you're pregnant. And so is there utility to it even outside of that? And the answer by and large, I'm going to answer it for Kristin, is yes. Like this information's valuable. So is there anything else you want to say on any of that before we kind of dive into a little bit more sperm QT?
No, not at all. And I'm happy to jump into that question that I put a pin in.
Yeah, let's
But
do
I
it.
wanted to make sure we address that just concept. So right now there's kind of two main tests besides from QT that are testing male fertility. The semen analysis, which primarily looks at count, how the sperm are moving, so motility and morphology. There are the predictive ability of the semen analysis is relatively low on its ability to predict the likelihood of IUI success or IVF success, except when there is very little sperm or no sperm. That is when it's highly predictive of the ability to fertilize an
Yeah.
egg. And
Like
it's
there's
a
just not
very
enough.
important.
And
Yeah,
what's made
exactly.
is probably pretty low quality.
That's exactly right. So
Mhm.
that's where it really adds a ton of value. The next is DNA fragmentation, which isn't used as commonly with in the earlier testing of men, which makes sense because primary predictability of DNA fragmentation is to predict recurrent pregnancy loss. So if you have been are suffering from recurrent pregnancy loss, which is just one of the most heartbreaking situations. DNA fragmentation is a really great test to do, and this looks at they look at your chromosomes and they actually look at structural breaks in the chromosome. So double-stranded and single-stranded breaks where your chromosomes aren't attached properly. This hasn't shown any predictability with IUI, but it has shown that when creating the embryo, the ability to the embryo to develop is impacted by those high DNA breaks. And updated guidelines for DNA fragmentation. DNA fragmentation tends to happen during the ejaculatory process. A lot of the oxidative stress occurs. So some ways to the most extreme procedure to really try to get around high DNA fragmentation in sperm is called testicular sperm extraction. So it's removing sperm from the testicle, which has lower fragmentation rates. Also, is frequent ejaculation. They have found that really quick ejaculation, you actually bypass a lot of the oxidative stress that happens in the during that process.
When you say frequent, do you mean very often or do you mean fast?
It means doing it like collecting a sample after doing it every 2 hours for like 6 hours. So like,
Oh,
so
okay.
the number of sperm will be less because you don't have buildup of the sperm, but the quality has usually less DNA fragmentation.
Okay.
So that's a common recommendation for high DNA fragmentation. But again, DNA fragmentation testing isn't done usually till later on in the journey if you've seen recurrent pregnancy loss.
Mm-hmm.
Sperm QT is different than DNA fragmentation, which looks at structural breaks. It actually looks at gene expression. So during spermatogenesis, which is when the sperm develop in the testicle, certain genes need to be turned on and off in order for that sperm to find, bind, and penetrate the egg and fertilize it. So you need all the right, essentially, soup in the
Mm-hmm.
sperm for it to function properly. And so that's what we're testing earlier on. And we've actually combined it with the semen analysis because when you combine them both together, it's highly predictive of IUI success rates. And a really important component here of how it's different than semen analysis is men with an abnormal sperm QT result, 75% of them have normal semen analysis,
Wow.
meaning 75% of those men with an abnormal result in sperm QT were considered fertile by their physician.
And is that
And
according to like WHO standards or
yeah,
fertility
the newest
clinic?
WHO
Okay.
standards.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so it's really identifying a subset of men who have gone under the radar. And so by combining sperm QT with semen analysis together, you get a larger, essentially, tool to diagnose male infertility and capture more men who otherwise would have gone undiagnosed.
So,
Um,
can you say those numbers again? 75% of people that have an abnormal sperm QT, I'm saying it kind of in reverse, have a completely normal semen analysis?
You got
Wow.
it. You
So
got it.
3 out of 4 people that you're saying are abnormal got missed in just the most routine first layer test that often happens after a year of trying, and a woman has already undergone a lot of invasive, expensive, and uncomfortable tests.
You got it. Yep, that's
Wow.
exactly it.
Wow.
And what it does, so combining this with Sperm QT with the semen analysis and doing it earlier on in the journey is what's recommended, because what we can predict with that is spontaneous pregnancy, timed intercourse, and IUI. We do know that IVF with ICSI, so grabbing a single sperm and doing the job of the sperm for it by putting it into the egg, actually overcomes really both an abnormal semen analysis and an
And the
abnormal sperm QT.
epigenetics. Hmm.
So if you are looking for a procedure to overcome this, ICSI is one that can be used to overcome it. We do know, like I mentioned in the beginning, that sperm epigenetics and epigenetics in general are influenced by the environment. And we have now seen anecdotally with sperm QT, we haven't run this clinical trial, so I want to make sure that's clear, that when men receive an abnormal result, we've had men make very significant lifestyle modifications, all ones that are very in line with standard recommendations: cigarettes, THC, alcohol, BMI, and testing within 6 months later, 3 to 6 months later, we actually have seen them go from an abnormal to a normal result.
Do you collect that data as you receive the samples, so you know going into it if they're using any of those things, what their height and weight might be, and do you?
We not in a just because how it's not a clinical trial, but in the cases where we see a man testing twice, we reach out to him and ask, um,
Okay.
"Are you testing twice because of lifestyle modifications? Can you give us examples of what you did?"
Okay. Because it's not, I
Yeah,
mean, it's not abnormal. I'm thinking about like the Dutch urine testing that I've done with clients. Like there's a form you send in where they
yeah.
track, when was your last period? It helps them contextualize the test. They ask a number of questions. So I just wondered if that's something
Yeah,
that's
I think that's a great idea. And we do have some actual clinical trials going that we are collecting lifestyle
mhm.
details. So I'm hoping once that clinical trial gets essentially unblinded from me, we could do
Right.
some very detailed
Yeah, that would be really
analysis.
cool. Ooh, man.
Yeah.
I just want to be your friend. I want to be like behind the scenes helping bring this to the masses. Maybe I
I
am, I
want
guess, a
you to
little
do
bit.
that. I love that.
Okay. I'm sorry that I interrupted you. So, okay. But this does bring a point up that if you haven't been in the realm of IVF, I just want to point out what Kristin just brought up, the ICSI. That's something you can elect, but it's not typically something offered until you've done unsuccessful
Right.
rounds of harvesting eggs from you, taking semen, and then putting them together. There are, I think, criteria that would have a fertility doctor suggest this in more cases, but it's not. I mean, I've worked with so many people that like they choose ICSI after failed attempt, failed attempt, failed attempt. And so it's not this thing that she's mentioning. If you know you have concerns and ICSI could help you overcome it, it's not something that's just like everybody opts into and it happens in a first line thing. So having this information, my point, my bring like finish the circle is having this information could actually save you money and time and things because you could elect to use a procedure and additional support getting the sperm into the egg by knowing I'm the person that's going to need that going into
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the background on ICSI, it was actually developed for the cases of male infertility. So ICSI's original reasons for development and guidelines was when there was a male factor,
mm,
because it does the job of
right.
the sperm for it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is no exception to that. So it actually makes sense that it fits into those guidelines. So if you
Mm-hmm.
have a partner who has very low sperm counts, it's it's in those cases, ICSI is a common recommendation. And same with sperm QT. If you have an abnormal sperm QT, your physician is not going to recommend 3 IUIs or, stimulated timed intercourse. They will direct you to ICSI much more quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And, no judgments on choices, interventions. Like I am here to educate, inform, advocate, all these things. So this is not a statement for those of you that are listening that's like, I did ICSI and I have this baby from it. But if we could know that there's something that my lifestyle and environment around my body, environment in my body, turning on specific sperm genes within the sperm, if there are things I could do to change and make my sperm healthier, given a scenario where I have time to optimize these things, wouldn't I want the healthiest sperm? Like, if you handed me all 12 eggs that I could ovulate in a year, and you could say, this egg is the strongest, like least chance of developing the PCOS you're carrying, least chance of developing, all these things, wouldn't you choose that egg? Yes.
Yes,
We'd be
yes,
idiots not to if we could play God in that way, right?
yes,
So if you have time, I know couples that have chosen, I don't even want to think about it. I just want to go straight to IVF. We haven't even tried to conceive. I have a friend who chose that. Okay. No judgment. But if I could say to you, something's going on with that sperm you're about to do IVF with and ICSI with, and could we spend 6 months improving some of the things? They would probably say yes if I could pull back the cover and say something's wrong here. And that's just
absolutely.
so cool that you can do that.
And I mean, that goes to the need for earlier testing for men. That by having earlier testing, you have more luxury of time to make
Yes,
changes and to get
exactly.
that sperm as high quality and the best chances possible.
We're going to take a break from this episode to hear about one of our sponsors. You've probably heard me say this before, but preparing your body for pregnancy is not just about you. It's about both of you. Fertility is truly a team effort, and that's why I love the Fullwell Fertility Trio for Two. Fullwell was founded by a fellow registered dietitian and fertility expert, Ayla Barmer, and this bundle was designed to support both partners in the months leading up to conception. It combines their top-rated prenatal vitamin, omega-3 fish oil, and a fertility booster supplement that covers things like CoQ10, N-acetylcysteine, alpha lipoic acid, and organic ashwagandha root extract. The nutrients here support overall egg quality, sperm health, fertility, and even your stress resilience. If your partner's semen analysis looks normal, or if it's suboptimal and we need to improve things, nutrition plays a key role for things like sperm motility, count, and DNA quality. For women, these same nutrients help with ovulation, egg development, and healthy hormone balance, not to mention mitochondrial support, which is a huge piece of how your gametes mature and get ready to be that queen egg or that king sperm that make it to combining to form an embryo. These things are foundational for a strong, healthy pregnancy. I personally love that Fullwell's formulas are third-party tested, they're evidence-based, and made with doses that actually match what the research shows we need. No fluff, no underdosing. So if you're planning to start trying this winter or sometime in 2026, or you've been trying to conceive for a while, it's time to think about starting to nourish your bodies for what's ahead. or take a step up from your current protocol to one that is high quality. Head to fullwellfertility.com and use the code FFF20 for 20% off your order. That's FFF20 at checkout. I'll drop the link in the show notes for this specific fertility trio bundle and for Fullwell, along with this code FFF20. Give yourself and your future family the best foundation with Fullwell's fertility trio for two.
I'm interrupting this episode for another of our sponsors. This one is so exciting. They actually approached us and asked if we wanted to do a partnership, which was a resounding yes from me because I have been a huge fan of their products for years now, and that is Cozy Earth. If you haven't heard of Cozy Earth, they make the softest, most luxurious, most comfortable bedding and linens and towels and just all the things that you would want in your home. So if you are looking to have a fresh start this new year, if you want to have a refresh in your bedroom, in your pajamas, in your loungewear, in your bath towels, your bedding, anything like that, Cozy Earth is the place to go. You have heard us harp on sleep quality on this podcast 100 times. If your bed is soft and cool and smooth, how much better of a night of sleep do you have? And that is really what Cozy Earth is offering. They have a risk-free purchase option where you can try them out for 100 nights. And if you don't absolutely love them, you can return them hassle-free. But let me guarantee you, you will love them because these are seriously fantastic linens. There's also a 10-year warranty. So if they are not living up to your expectations within those 10 years, Cozy Earth is there to help resolve the issue with you. So go on over to CozyEarth.com and use our code FFF20 for up to 20% off. And if you get the post-purchase survey, be sure to mention you heard about Cozy Earth right here on the Food Freedom Fertility Podcast. Bye.
So I absolutely agree. A sperm, like the existence of sperm, does not mean the existence of quality sperm.
Right.
So where the semen analysis, we just see sperm under a microscope, it doesn't mean that they're highest quality.
Mm-hmm.
So can we do things to improve that? And we have seen that in our work, but also, I mean, decades of work from other researchers have shown that lifestyle modifications change sperm epigenetics and can be reversed too. Like smoking, like if you stop smoking, it actually reverses the effects of smoking on sperm. And that's one of the coolest things about sperm biology is that you're constantly making new ones. So you have this ability to really impact its biology. So I absolutely agree. We need earlier testing to see if there's an issue, which allows more time. And then let's optimize our sperm quality again for pregnancy success and offspring health.
Awesome. Okay. So let's take a step back and say, I'm struggling to conceive. My husband's interested, my partner, whatever. I don't care about your relationship dynamics. The intended dad of my child wants to do this test. Like, what is the user experience?
Yes. Yeah. So we actually, so there's two options.
And journey,
One
I guess.
is,
Customer journey.
there's two journeys for this.
Mm-hmm.
One, if you don't have a physician yet and you're just interested in this, you can order it on our website. So go to pathfertility.com and order it. We have a discount code for this podcast, which is FFF20, and we'll probably repeat that again at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But you can order that. We have a physician on our end that can order the test for you and provide a consultation.
Awesome.
So that is an option if you don't have a physician. If you do have a physician, the physician puts in an order form for you. In both of these cases, once we receive the payment, we ship a collection kit to the patient's home. So there's an at-home collection with prepaid shipping. The sample is collected, and that sample is sent directly to our laboratory for testing. Tried before is isolate the sperm and sequence those 1,233 genes, and then analyze it and provide the results back to the ordering physician, in that case where your physician orders it. And the results are within about 2 weeks of submitting
receipt of the sample. Okay, so questions if I was going to order this. How long between sample collected and sample posted? What's the recommendation there? Like my husband gives a sample at 1 p.m. today. Am I trying to get it in the mail that day? Am I trying to freeze it? Is there like a step in between?
Yeah, great question. So the wonderful thing about sperm epigenetics is that it's very stable. So unlike a lot of at-home collection tests for sperm that require a lot of cryopreservation or freezing or medias, it's actually very stable at room temperature or ambient temperature. We do
Okay.
request to ship it out as soon as you can, but if it's sitting there, you know, we don't we've tested up for 10 days at 65 degrees Celsius, which is really
Really
hot,
hot. Yeah.
and we don't see any changes. So
Okay.
really the recommendation to ship it out as quickly as possible so you can get your results as quick as possible.
Even if you live in southern Florida in the middle of summer or Michigan in the middle of winter, it should work. Okay.
Yes, and we have tested those conditions for exactly those reasons of,
Perfect.
yeah,
Yeah. Real
Arizona
life.
summer in a FedEx,
Yeah. In a FedEx truck. Yeah. This isn't like the um, whatever food delivery truck is getting your Trader Joe's
exactly.
order and it's refrigerated. Same with supplements. It's like, oh, you ordered your supplements, but I had a client in Atlanta in the middle of summer and they sat in their mailbox overnight and they opened their fish oil and it was all just like one congealed thing.
Yep,
And I was like,
yep,
bummer, we got to send you a new product and maybe we need to
yep.
overnight it with an ice pack. So a little bit more stable. That's encouraging to hear. A little sperm
It's
genetics
a
is stable.
Yeah, that it was a pleasant surprise in our work is that that's something that makes just the patient experience a little bit
Yeah,
easier,
totally.
is not having to, add media or have frozen ice packs or all of that. So it's been very convenient for our patients.
And in that respect, interesting. This isn't looking at them moving. This isn't looking at necessarily the count. We're looking at some of the sperm and sequencing the genes. Are you looking at a lot of individual sperm to sequence the genes? Like, are you looking at one? How does that work?
Yeah, great question. So right now we're looking at the population as a whole. So
Okay.
we're seeing essentially averages across the population.
Okay.
And we have a research goal and something that we're working on for understanding single cell analysis. Can we understand micro populations in a semen sample, which is actually very important and likely what we're seeing with sperm QT is micropopulation shifts where the majority of them have poor epigenetics. Some probably have okay epigenetics. And then the other vice versa in
Mm-hmm.
fertile samples, probably the majority have great epigenetics
And some
and
don't.
a small population don't. So we're really looking at these population averages.
But okay, it's coming. It made it there 8 days later, let's say, made it to you and is being tested. But the recommendation is to pair this with a more traditional semen analysis for the most thorough
Yes,
context that could be
that's
actionable.
exactly right.
So if somebody hasn't had a normal semen analysis, is there a way to like order this test and do that with it too? Or do you have
Absolutely.
a
Yeah.
partner supply testing
That's
situation?
exactly what, yeah, exactly right. So normally in a clinic, the clinic is doing it in-house, the semen analysis. So that's usually what's happening when you're getting your physician ordering it. If you're ordering it on our website, we do have the option to include a semen analysis plus sperm QT. And we have a partner who sends a semen analysis kit to the patient. There's an at-home collection. That kit is sent to their laboratory. They analyze it, and then they send the remaining part of that sample to us to complete the,
Oh,
the full
interesting.
comprehensive
So it's
picture.
one collection and it's shared among you.
Yeah,
And
the
how does
goal is to
that
have one
work?
collection.
How does that work with like the preservation of motility and
Yeah, for the when you are ordering a semen analysis, that absolutely needs a preservation media and temperature control. So
okay.
with our partner who we order it from, there is um, uh, temperature. There's a temperature tracker. There's a heat absorbent pad, and then there's also media that you add. The
Okay.
reason why that's so important for this is that you need to understand how the sperm moving. In our test, we don't need modal
Right.
sperm.
Right.
In a semen analysis, you do.
Right.
So in that case, there is recommendations for only shipping Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So you're not having it sit over the
Sit over the
weekend.
weekend. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
those, so there are more considerations when you're including a semen analysis.
Let's talk about like a patient A and a patient B. Patient A has a normal semen analysis. Maybe he's one of this 75%. He sends it in, and you find there's major dysfunction within the epigenetics of the sperm. B is normal semen analysis and not major dysfunction in the epigenetics, what's been turned on and what's not turned on.
Yeah.
How does that change the progression of recommendations or kind of that side of the customer journey? Because, of course, you're providing the results back to the physician, and the physician
Yes.
then is going to give a consult. But I'm sure you have thoughts on both of these types of patients.
Yeah, absolutely. So how our physicians are using it is pretty consistent um, with an abnormal. So really, and if an abnormal semen analysis or abnormal sperm QT, that is an indication of male factor. And what to be done there is really where the patient is at in their journey. How much time do they have? What do they want to do?
Funds, what, yeah. Yeah. You might
Everything.
be
There is,
totally anti-IVF. You're never going to do that. You
yeah,
may not want to do IUI, but what time do you have left? Yes. So
exactly.
we're always looking at the patient, not only the lab tests
Yeah.
and goals, et cetera. But
Exactly. So in a lot of the cases when a patient is at this stage in the fertility clinics, a lot of times they don't have the luxury of time. And in those cases, the essentially physicians review that the likelihood of success for these really more non-invasive procedures like IUI, timed intercourse, are much lower. They're not zero. Nothing is ever zero in fertility. There's always a chance, but they're much, much less likely. And so, what their recommendations are is if you want a baby, and if you are, really on this timeline, that IVF with ICSI is probably the best option for you to move forward and not try these non-invasive procedures more. In the case where it's normal, well, actually, let me go back. In the case where there's abnormal, either semen analysis or sperm QT, and there is time, we definitely know that both of these can be improved with lifestyle modifications. So that the physician can, if there's poor sperm count, there are options like Clomid and other medications, and there's also just treating the body because it's usually a sign that there's something going on. So you can try to improve the health and improve your sperm QT score. In the case where everything looks normal, again, it's where the patient is at in their journey, but the options could be, let's try IUI. Let's try simulated timed intercourse for 2 to 3 cycles, maybe go to IUI for 2 to 3 cycles. And the likelihood of success for those is much higher than in the other cases.
what about, have you looked at not IUI, but like ICI, intracervical insemination? I know
We
handful of,
haven't.
okay.
Yeah, so we just had a great conversation with the intertubule insemination group, Femicist, who's doing that for really trying to get the sperm exactly where you want it,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe a discussion about a potential clinical trial for that because um, I I think the more we could optimize the IUI process is helpful, and then identify people who are candidates for it is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to
Right.
really optimize both of those to get that procedure to higher success rates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool. It's interesting working in the fertility space. And as you mentioned at the beginning of this call, the equity disparity between how we treat men and how we treat women. I think this is true even of the things we know improve sperm quality. I feel like these end up sometimes feeling like boring episodes because what we're saying is stop smoking, stop drinking, don't ride your bike, don't sit in a sauna or a hot tub, boxer briefs, don't ejaculate too often, don't ejaculate not enough, time intercourse well, eat maybe a Mediterranean style diet. The walnut people did some research. Walnuts
Yep.
help, nuts help, good fatty acids help, anti-inflammatories, CoQ10. Then it's like ... want, kind of a little bit, I think, because on the female side, it's like, okay, gluten and dairy free, take all these crazy supplements. Do you need black cohosh? Do you want Vitex? Do you want to do Clomid or Letrozole? And is it a progesterone issue? And should you take progesterone? And I feel like there's a million tinkerings we do with women. And even I would say this is like one of the areas where maybe it feels like we have more research on women comparatively to men, and where
It's
we've
the
looked
only area in healthcare where all the attention's on the female.
exactly the only one that would emasculate a man, right? Like,
That's
don't
exactly it.
don't make him go ejaculate in a room in the dark with a nasty magazine, because we might find out he has poor motility and then he's going to feel terrible as a man. But shove that wand up her and poke through her cervix. Like, if you have had an IUD placed,
Yes.
you basically probably know what it feels like to have a kidney stone. Like, these are equivalent in my mind, right? Like,
So awful.
this is just like the one area of science where it's very interesting. We know more about women in the until you, Kristin, because you're so cool, the technology has advanced on the female side. But it is kind of boring. It's kind of blasé what we can say to men on improving lifestyle factors. So
Yeah.
maybe I'm throwing you a nice softball lob, hit it out of the park. Maybe this is like going to put you on the spot and you're going to be like, yeah, it sucks and it's boring. Of the things that you've seen be modified, improved, of all the research I'm sure you've read and the shoulders you're up against that are maybe doing current research, is there anything more? Is there anything
Yeah.
different we can say that could be helpful?
So right now, probably not, but
Yeah.
there is research going on. And one of the directions of our research, which a lot of people are kind of doing not similar things, but are thinking about, is we understand at a gene level which genes are being turned on and off for an individual, and which genes are more susceptible to change for an individual. So, with more and more data, we can understand which ones are more predictive of success, which ones are more influenced by which lifestyle modification, and we could actually give very personalized recommendations based on the epigenetic profile of this individual. And that is something we are like,
On the
it makes
cusp
me
of, kind
just
of.
so excited in this field because we're sitting on so much data. We just need more. We just need more, and we need much more clinical trials in this space. But we're actively doing this. Is this individual has these set of genes that are dysregulated, which is a unique fingerprint compared to this individual. He made these changes, and those genes were more susceptible to change. But in this individual with these genetics, they couldn't change. So we can start to get really personalized to understand um, what what changes medication wise, therapeutic medication and lifestyle can really influence these men. I just wrote a grant to do this tracking of sperm epigenetics with after pre and post varicocele repair, which is a very
Mm.
common surgery for men who
Mhm.
have a very large vein behind their testicle, which is impacting fertility, for anastrozole and Clomid and FSH therapeutics for men. So
Interesting.
can we really fine tune the therapeutic use based on their actual gene profile?
So interesting. I have a client that I'm thinking of right now where no children. no pregnancies because they didn't want any. And he had a vasectomy, and he's had a vasectomy reversal.
Yeah.
And the semen analysis is poor at baseline. We haven't even done like your testing. Is there hope for those types of individuals? Have you collected data on a subset like that?
We haven't done the post vasectomy reversal men who have low sperm counts, but that is a very common problem and something. The vasectomy reversal is one of the most complicated procedures of like procedures in the whole urology field. It is extremely, extremely complicated, and having low counts afterwards is something that is a risk. Um, so no, we haven't done that on the post vasectomy group, but
Yeah.
that is
And it's a
an
smaller
area that's really,
population,
yeah.
but they're still important, you know?
They're very important because
Yeah.
they're trying to choose a different path.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Which that's,
we do.
I was just
Yeah,
going to
I
say,
do work in non-obstructive azoospermia with no sperm, and so we are looking at testicular sperm extraction. So that is always an option for men with
interesting.
vasectomies.
Yeah. So interesting. And just hearing you say they're choosing a different path. Talk to me about, I mean, this is just my own personal interest, but what's the path been like? And you guys put it in your name of these last 6 years and the last 2 years and writing grants and being knee deep in research. Like, what does this behind the scenes kind of look and feel like for you?
Yeah, great question. So anyone who's been a part of a startup knows the startup world is always difficult and hard. It's but it this what we I think we realized going into this and from our last experience that there's no easy path in creating a new test, new technology. We have from the very start said we are a data-centric company, and that's why we spent 4 years doing just research in order to make a test that now we've shown in three independent clinical studies the same data that we are predictive of fertility outcomes, and have taken kind of a slow and steady path to reach where we are at. A lot of companies maybe scale too early or make claims that are not accurate. And that is something we've really wanted to just, you have, it's, it's a balancing act of keeping yourself going as a startup, but also doing all the right things. And we've been really
Mm-hmm.
fortunate, one, to get government funding. The NIH and the NSF have been very the small business grants have been crucial for us. And then also having investors who believed in the long vision of our company and
Mm-hmm.
not short wins. That is, I
Mm-hmm.
think, what takes startups down is trying to get those short wins
Mm-hmm.
because you really you can't have solid data if you try to
Do it too
get something to
quickly.
market too quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So
we are.
interesting.
Yeah, and my co-founder, his name is Andy Olson, and has just been um, an amazing influence on the company. He has developed diagnostic tools before and has the same mentality as I do. So we've really been on the same page of trying to do it right and in
Mm-hmm.
building up credibility in this field around this test.
So awesome. So a lot of listeners are trying to get pregnant, I like to say in the wild, like on their own in their house without tubes and
Hmm.
procedures and needles. And of course, that's the dream for everyone. A lot of it sounds like the research has been shown helpful in situations like IUI. For
Yes.
somebody that's like, would this be helpful for me to know when we're just trying to have sex in my fertile window, timed intercourse, have this be less medical and I have time? What would you say to that person?
So knowledge is power, as I think something that's probably consistent in your episodes of making sure people have the information that they need. I think having an assessment of male fertility earlier on is always better. If it's something you're thinking about and you're trying to have a baby, I think it's really important to understand if there's going to be an obstacle in the way, so you can address that
It's early on.
more timely.
Mm-hmm.
Then, you don't have to do anything immediately, but you can do it much more timely.
Would you recommend if somebody was going to do this in a semen analysis that they also chose DNA fragmentation in that semen analysis?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, DNA fragmentation is a completely different test than sperm
Right.
QT, but adds very important information. So really, all three of those together provides the most comprehensive that currently is available
Mm-hmm.
for male fertility testing. So I say it does cost money, so staging it might be important for when it's most useful, but the more information, the better in my mind.
Yeah, that's so cool. Hey, friends, we're taking a break from our episode to talk about one of our sponsors. And this sponsor is the PCOS app. Did you know that I made an app all about PCOS? Well, I did, and you can find so many resources in it. We have slowly moved all the resources from my PCOS Hormone Academy course over into the PCOS app, and that talks about all things PCOS topically. Like if you have acne, you can go look at the skin and acne modules and see what does Western medicine offer? Why does this impact PCOS? What can we do about it? What are natural remedies? What are nutritional remedies? We talk about hair loss and hirsutism all through that lens where we go through what is it? Why is it impacted by PCOS? Or why do we need to pay more attention to this particular thing? And what can we do about it? And we provide a vast resource to help you both advocate for yourself at the doctor's office and treat yourself at home naturally. Now, the exciting thing that I want to share with you is starting in January 2025, we're starting to migrate all of the content that I have published so far on fertility into this app. I used to sell a course for $700 all about how to get pregnant with PCOS, and that is all getting moved into the app between January and March. So you can take the course as if you enrolled in the whole thing for $10 per month. So head to your app store, whether you're on a Google Android device or an Apple device. If you type in PCOS app, you just look for that really pretty lavender flower, you'll find it. Download it and join us because you're going to get weekly recipes and all the fertility focused PCOS content that you need. It will start being uploaded under the Academy tab. So stay tuned for that. And let's get back to our episode. Well, I want to thank you again for your time and just the passion you're bringing to this and the solutions you're bringing. I hope that we can continue to have a friendship, and I would love to support your business in any way that I can. But for our listeners, if they're like, yeah, I'm down, I want to order this today, let's tell them again where to go, what code they can use, and any parting thoughts or things you wish I would have asked you about. I know in our email I said, let's talk about methylation, and that would be cool. Maybe we do a follow-up episode about that. I know that's a big piece of things and what you're looking at.
Well, so absolutely, if this is something you're interested, you can go to our website, pathfertility.com, and you just order it on the website. And like we mentioned before, you can do a sperm QT alone or a sperm QT with semen analysis. And we will have a physician for a consultation of those results if you would like. And then to get 20% off because of this amazing opportunity and this podcast, you can put in the discount code FFF20,
Awesome.
and we can get you a discount for listening to this podcast and supporting this team, Caitlin and Sophia.
Yeah. Well, and this test becoming accessible to even more people.
Yes.
I mean, paying for it helps. Those grants are great, but eventually, any business needs to turn a profit, even in the startup world. So
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you again. I would love to invite you to be a part of our Yeah Girl segment. And
Awesome.
You don't maybe know this. I'm going to reach back here. Sophia's not here. We just recorded an episode right before this. And in between the episode, I walked out to my mailbox. Sophia is pregnant, and this is her third baby. And I am not going to reveal this on the episode, but she is pregnant with her third baby. This is the only baby. They're not going to find out the gender for, But because I'm her best friend and because I am the best lockbox in the world, don't even try to come at me. I won't tell you. Unless maybe you want to hand me $1 million. But if the gender of her baby is that important to you, she'd probably prefer the $1 million herself. But I just found out if she's having a little girl or a little boy to join her 2 little girls. And I couldn't be more excited to be the only secret holder in the whole world. She said, Merry Christmas when I called her and said, I know, because we finished the episode. I walked out to see because I've been knowing it's coming, and it was like on my front porch with another Christmas present from Amazon, I'm sure. And I got a spread eagle picture from her radiologist of lack thereof or thereof. And my girl is that I get to be the best friend of someone who trusts me that much. And how fun Auntie Caitlin knows what kind of clothes to buy for this baby. How fun is that?
That is so good. I love that. Congratulations.
Thank you. I know. I feel I should have a congratulations. It's so fun. I really do feel like I won like the lottery. And I know this like super fun, exciting secret. Oh, yeah, girl. Okay.
That's awesome. Okay, so
you get to celebrate anything.
I have a great yeah, girl.
Oh, perfect.
So last week I went to Aruba, which I didn't know where that was on a map before I went.
Yeah.
But it was to celebrate 35 years of friendship with my 2 best friends.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, we met when we were 7 years old. And we've been wanting to get a trip, and we somehow got it scheduled at our 35-year friendship anniversary. And we told everybody, so we got some free champagne in the restaurants as well, to celebrate that with us. And so that
I was ready for you to say like 35 years of marriage, which you don't look old enough to be married that long. But I actually think this is like just as sweet, if not more so, to have a best friend that long. And to also go to Aruba. It's making me think of that song, like, I don't even know if they say Aruba, but Jamaica.
Ooh, I want to take you. Yep, Beach Boys.
Largo, Montego. Baby, why don't we go down to Kokomo? I grew up in Southern Florida, and my husband was in the Navy and went all over the Caribbean. And so I just think that song is so fun.
That is. Well, we thought while we were sitting in turquoise water and enjoying a cocktail, we thought it would be amazing that we should just do this every year and hit every place on the Beach Boys song as our new thing.
Idea. I think that's a great new thing. And maybe I can bring my best friend Sophia sometime and we'll join the party. We'll have a next to you party that sometimes we commingle.
We can commingle. Fun. I think that would be really fun.
Oh, yeah, girl. That's the best. You have a meeting or something you have to go to, which makes me so sad because I have a million questions I want to ask you off air. So I might just email them to you. But thank you again for coming. Listeners, I hope you get pregnant. I hope you don't need this test, but I hope if you choose to do it, that it's super enlightening and helpful. And I would love to be the person that helps you change your lifestyle around it. I hope that you all have friends that you want to go on a trip 35 years from now. And I hope that you leave a rating of our podcast, review, subscribe on YouTube, do all of those stupid things we tell you to do every episode. I hope you do that too, but I hope those other things more. We'll see you next week.
Thanks so much.